Yeah. We heard a ting.
Yep.
Oh, you got the ting. I did not get the
No, I
ting.
didn't.
There we
No, I
go.
didn't. I heard, yeah.
Oh, we've got 36 participants on already, I can see. 37. We're climbing. Excellent. Morning, Kevin.
Morning, Claire. How are you?
I'm very well. How's your sound? How's your microphone? How's your visual?
Perfect. I think I'm good to go. Thank you.
Brilliant, brilliant. So we'll probably just give it a couple of minutes. I can see people ferociously joining, but we'll probably just give it ferociously. Is that the right word? We'll give it a couple of minutes before we kick into it. But yeah, let's just keep an eye on it and see how we go. How's the morning been so far?
It's been positive and productive. I think for anybody joining, I have young twins, so maybe we won't get into that too much when I talk about well-being. But definitely, it's a fast start to the mornings.
You do have the Aura ring, so you can keep a track of how the well-being and blood pressure is actually dealing at the moment with the twins at home.
I think if anybody does wear a wearable like health device like this, I have it on my finger, the ring. It's pretty enlightening. Yeah, it definitely is. It's given me some interesting statistics. Luckily, nothing to worry about.
Well, you were much younger than your actual years by your ring, right? So, I mean, if anything,
Well, I don't know if I can trust the ring, but it did tell me my heart is 2 years younger than my actual age. So yeah, I don't think I've ever heard a doctor say that. So I'll take it with a pinch of salt.
I don't know. Um, I've just seen a little message come through. All
Thanks, Sean.
right. Yeah, I'm lucky I'm not wearing one of those rings today. I think we are on first week of school holidays, which is interesting for anybody who works remotely, and having your kids at home with you on school holidays. It's a game changer, or it changes the game at least. But yeah. All right. Shall we kick off?
Yes.
Brilliant. So, hi everyone, and a huge welcome to everybody that has joined and everybody that is watching the recording as well afterwards. We are so pleased to have you join us for today's session. As you already know, because you signed up for the session, we're here today to talk about return on investment, or ROI, of well-being, so unlocking employee productivity. My name is Claire Flynn. So I am the manager of people partnering here at Employment Hero in the UK, and I'll be hosting today's session, which I'm super excited about. It's a great topic, and probably a really, really hot topic, I would say, at the moment everywhere. I'm also joined by the fantastic Kevin Fitzgerald, who is our managing director here in the UK, who you've just met and learned a little bit about his wellness at home with his twins and his Aura ring. I've had the privilege of working with Kevin. I want to say it's been for about 2 years, but it feels like a lot longer, and probably across multiple continents at this point. So I feel like I know you pretty well. I have seen firsthand as well how passionate you are around driving these initiatives where we can around wellbeing within business, which I think is great. So it's great that we can do this together today. Great that you can take the reins on the deck and take us through everything. So good morning again to you, Kevin. Before I hand over to, I guess, ask you to tell our awesome audience a little bit about yourself, I thought I might throw a bit of an icebreaker your way, if you game.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So it's a would you rather. So would you rather host all your webinars running on a treadmill, or start every meeting that you go into singing your name?
I'm trying to figure out what would be more offensive to other people. So I'd probably have to pick the treadmill. Yeah, I don't think anybody would want to hear me singing. Apparently, Irish people are meant to be able to sing, but like, yeah, I think I break the mold. Yeah.
Man, I was so hoping that you were going to pick the singing, because obviously then I was going to try and throw you into doing that now. I mean, you can feel free to, but yeah, and
No,
it must be, so it must be a myth then, because I've been to Dublin and there was some pretty good singing there, so you must be the outlier in the Irish
yeah,
community.
yeah, happy to be an outlier in this regard. Yeah.
Do you want to take everybody through a bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, and welcome everybody. Good morning. It's really good to have you here. My name is Kevin. I'm fortunate enough to be the managing director and leader of our business in the UK. And in a bit of a nutshell, like I started working in a professional capacity in 1999. Straight out of high school and straight into a professional job as a junior accountant and studied at night time. But rather than bore you with like what I've done and where I've worked and all that stuff, the last 25 years, it's really the most common denominator is working with great people and working with people, like to figure out how they become great. Um, it's a it's not an easy one. It's full of challenges, but it is probably the most satisfying part of my job. Being able to figure things out and understand it. And even now with Employment Hero for the last 2.5 years, it's an additional professional challenge in terms of how we think about people and well-being and performance and happiness and how they tie together. Because for ourselves, we are almost 2,000 people who are fully remote, so we have no office anywhere in the world. And that in itself is like for a leader or a teammate or an individual in a business is it's actually quite a professional challenge to figure out. But ultimately, at the crux of it all, people are more important than everything else. So whether it's remote or in an office, you have to figure out the right way to work with people and treat them well and talk about well-being and invest in well-being. So we're here today to share a bit more about that.
Thank you very much. And yeah, so true, especially in a business like ours. I couldn't agree more. So if you are here today, chances are you already understand that wellbeing isn't just a cultural add-on or a feel-good initiative. It's a strategic lever that you can use. And in this session, we're going to explore why investing in wellbeing isn't just the right thing to do, it's a smart thing to do, and it's something that's really needed. As you've no doubt already picked up on, I started my Employment Hero journey in our Australian business, supporting globally before moving solely into the UK business. And having worked across multiple regions, I have seen how the conversation around workplace wellbeing has shifted. And while we have come a long way, and many of you here have no doubt been part of that shift, we do know that getting buy-in, like true buy-in and investment and measurable impact can still be a challenge. So that's exactly what we're here to unpack today. So Kevin will be walking us through insights from our latest research, exploring what really drives employee productivity, and sharing practical evidence-based steps you can take back to your organization. So whether you're in a HR role, a leadership role, or simply passionate about creating better workplaces. Before we kick into it, we do have a little bit of housekeeping. So yes, this session is being recorded, so there's no need to take notes. So you can just sit back and relax and enjoy it and take it all in. We will send the recording and slides and follow-up resources to your inbox afterwards. We will also wrap up, like this is a bit of an interactive session also, so we'll wrap up with a live Q&A. So feel free to pop your questions into the Q&A box throughout, and we will answer as many as we can live. If there are any that we get that we don't have time to get to, we'll make sure that we get back to you following the webinar with whatever we can provide as well. So I thought just to get us started before we launch into your deck, Kevin, we might just begin with like a simple question. So what would you say to a business leader who is still skeptical about the value of prioritizing employee well-being?
I think with skeptics, right, like you've got to bring the facts, right, like and the proof and really like our reporting and our like the ROI that we can show in our ways of working is really important to actually dispel some of that skepticism, because we know like if you're working with people and they feel really good about what they're doing, they feel really satisfied, the outcome is an increase in productivity. And yes, there will always be skeptics. That's fine. That's just how the world works. But what we're able to display now is actually some data and proof to help people have that conversation.
Yeah, it's there now, right? So it makes it easier to have that conversation. Years ago, it definitely wasn't that way. So I think we're probably in a really fortunate time now where we actually have that available to us, and we can share that with people so that they can learn how to utilize that themselves. So yeah, I will, you've probably heard enough from me anyway. I will put myself back on mute and I'll let Kevin kick into his slides.
Thank you, Claire. Hi everybody, and for anybody that's just joined, like you're really welcome. My name is Kevin Fitzgerald. I'm the UK Managing Director here at Employment Hero, and just a quick one, like who are we and what are we all about? We are a very successful business. We're not a startup. We've been around for over 10 years now. And we have reached unicorn status in the last couple of years with a big funding round. The key thing that we always remind people is we are also profitable, which I think you would see a lot of startups trying to achieve that in their early years, but we're way past that in terms of the maturity of the business. Why do people like us and why do they come to us? Well, there is a big shift in terms of consolidation of systems that businesses use in the UK, and certainly we're seeing it in Australia, but probably the UK is moving a bit quicker. Um, I think businesses in the last 10 years made all the right decisions in terms of choosing technology, but they probably chose a system that solved like one problem that was quite siloed. So it would be quite typical if, say, you and your own business right now has a HRIS system, payroll system, employee engagement, a recruitment system like an ATS, even a separate benefits platform. But we're all in one, and we truly mean it. So we think about it we think about what we build as less about features and more about the employment experience. So yeah, we're becoming obviously very popular. We serve over 30,000 SMEs in the UK, which is brilliant. And customers appear to like us. They give us really good ratings on Capterra, G2. So please take a look if you're interested. But why are you actually here today? So evolution of well-being into the workplace, the world has changed so much since COVID. Like I think that was quite a drastic and kind of unique situation that we lived in certainly my lifetime. But it really changed things, and I think that was the that was a moment in time where things really shifted for people. Like, and it was like, what am I getting out of this? Like, and I think for us, like, and even myself, it kind of made me reflect a lot, like, on what was really important. So we took it upon ourselves to say, well, how do we actually take the discussion for well-being into a more tangible situation? And what I mean by tangible is, imagine yourself going to speak to a leader or the CFO to talk about investment and well-being. Most times they'll say, "Show me the outcome or prove it." And a lot of businesses just didn't have that to hand. They felt really passionate about the discussion, but they didn't have the data and the proof. So we've seen an opportunity, right, like to help people with that. So we're going to share more today. Um, Bit of a favorite one for me is it's not a perk. Like well-being isn't a perk. Like it shouldn't just be a small moment in time in your 40-hour work week or shorter work week or longer in a lot of cases. It's got to be a people strategy, and certainly led by the top. But let's go back down memory lane a little bit, back to the 90s, and this is the decade I started working in. And health and safety was a bit like of a like very much like uh black and white, like if you physically hurt yourself or you don't. It wasn't about like your mental state and how you felt about what you were doing or your levels of satisfaction. In fact, I don't think they were even like popular topics back then. And I give you an example of my experience. So at 18, I left high school in Dublin. I went straight to work for an SME who was an accounting firm, and we were serving SMEs. And this wasn't a flashy office or anything like that. It was a converted house in the middle of Dublin, 2 stories. And the partner of the firm, there was one partner and there was about 25 staff. Um, he ruled with an iron fist. He was like a kind of typical of that era. But probably the weirdest thing about health and safety considerations then was it definitely didn't exist in that office because I used to take my working paper files, like the financial statements that I prepared for clients, go and sit in his office. But if you looked up to the ceiling, um, you would see a huge yellow ring of stain on the ceiling. And it was because he smoked 40 cigarettes a day. I think they were Benson and Hedges. And I would actually have to sit beside him for probably an hour. and he might go through 6 or 7 cigarettes, right? Like, so that's what we were dealing with back then, and thankfully that's changed, and definitely put me off ever trying to have a cigarette in my life, thankfully. But I don't think that would happen nowadays, is what I'm trying to say. The 2000s, people were all about like stress management. Like, how do you manage your own problem? Like, that was kind of the narrative. And I think everybody had a stress ball at some point, or a little smiley face, little yellow face, smiley face, and they sat on the office desk, and people were scrambling to figure out how to actually help people. So it was like, well, let's get you to a stress management seminar, and you can listen to it, and then you go off and figure it out. But they weren't actually getting to the source of the challenge, which was, well, why am I in this situation? And is this environment right for me? And what are the tools that I can, use to cope with it? It was very much pushed outside the business. And then in the 2010s, we got mental health first aiders, and it kind of just didn't hit the mark, right? Like, it was just like, it was almost going back to the 90s again. It was a bit like more about safety and reactive measures, and people ticking a box to say we talk about mental health, but no one was discussing mental health, and no one was putting programs in place that can materially impact and benefit people's mental health and well-being in the workplace. So again, felt a little bit superficial, and it wasn't cultural, because my experience, and certainly my belief, is when people started talking about mental health back in the 2010s, it was almost seen as a group of people or a cohort of people that really struggle with life. In my view, it's like, hey, everybody needs a little bit of help in this arena nowadays. And it was my parents actually who said to me, hey, if you're going to go and get your car serviced by a mechanic once a year or once every 2 years, why wouldn't you get your body and mind, looked after as well? Like, and that was something that really rang true. It's like the most important part of our own body. What are we doing about it? But companies really didn't know what to do at that stage. So I don't think that really worked. And then we got into the second half of that decade, and it was very much about the big tech companies, and companies with a real public profile. Free lunch, snacks, here's some fruit. Lots of like Art Deco posters on walls with like statements about like what they stand for, but very little substance between it. Because yes, I do love it. Some fruit during the day, and if it's free, even better. But it doesn't really impact me. Like, it felt like a little bit of a novelty in some cases. So again, superficial, right? Like, it just wasn't enough. And it was with the right intentions, but I don't think it really hit the mark. And then, yeah, COVID hit us, and I was actually living in Singapore at the time, and it was probably, COVID certainly hit that part of the world first, and moved west. That was very challenging. Like, and I had a team of 65 people across Singapore and Hong Kong, and it was very reactive, because I also didn't feel equipped to figure out like, oh, what should we do here, and how do we look after people? And all this stuff came out about people having to work from home, so they weren't choosing it, and the dynamic of their home life situation, how they felt about it, how they could operate and work. And to give you like a really good example, in Singapore, it is very common to have multiple generations living in the same property. Okay. It's an island, it's very small, there's 6 million people. Most people live in apartment blocks, like they don't have gardens and they don't have outdoor spaces, mainly because it's just limited in space, but also it's so hot. Like, and it's really hot during the day, so you just can't go sit in the garden, right? Like, and work. But I had a guy in the team, and he was kind of struggling a lot. Like, and I was like, mate, like, what's going on? And he showed me he was literally working from a kitchen that was shared with his siblings, his parents, and his grandparents. And it was a 4 bedroom apartment. He had nowhere else to go. And that was incredibly challenging. So everything there was quite reactive. And in some ways, it all brought us closer together, which was really good. But it felt like emergency mode. Like, how are we going to solve this? How can we solve it? Like, who is responsible? But the company I was at were incredibly supportive. and we leaned in and just figured out like different ways to help people. But it was definitely survival mode, and I think people have plenty of scars from that time. Now it's quite a topic, right? Like back to office, hybrid, fully remote. We're fully remote. We're really proud of it. If you want to be fully remote, you tend to enjoy it more. If you want to be in the office, you tend to enjoy it more. It's whatever you want to have individually is really important to you. But it's almost like an incentive for people to get back to an office that we're seeing at the moment, like which is just not, I think, healthy. And again, I think we're going back to the fruit and like offerings, right? Like to get people back in, but it's just not working. So when you kind of take all that into account, and like, have we really nailed this, right? Like, like the majority of our time spent in work is communicating and spending time with other human beings. And whether you're a leader or not, like it goes both ways, right? Like how you actually treat people and talk to people and figure things out together. I think it's really important that that's the focus, but it has the necessary investment, obviously. Um, there's always the well-being and employee wellness kit that we've seen. But again, it just for me it just isn't enough. Okay. Um, so like maybe for yourselves, like have a think around your role, what's changed for you. But if you're a leader or an owner operator of a business, what have you changed for your people since if you've been in business since the 90s or even 5, 10 years ago? Like it is a bit of a reflective moment. So, but I hope you can see there, like we've tried so many things over the last 25, 30 years, but I'm not sure anybody's landed this at scale that can have a true impact. The issue generally is investment. You know, the accountant in me looks at like a lot of different numbers, obviously, each day. But if someone's talking to me about something they want to do in the business or an outcome, I will always look for, well, what's the benefit to the business? And it's got to be really tangible so that I can actually, in my role, say, yes, we're going to do this, or no, you need to go away and do a bit more work on this, or no, like this is just not for us right now. Um, and SMEs struggle, right? Like, because they think about, well, it's obviously a challenge to run an SME every day of the week, every month of the year. When someone comes and says, I need, investment to do A, B, or C, I almost think the automatic reaction is to say no. And we understand that. But this is the cost of it. So you will have seen, whether it's news headlines or trade publications or insights into what's happening in the UK. Productivity in the UK is going backwards, and it's behind, America, Germany, and France. And even I hear those countries, and I'm like, oh, well, like why? Like what is it? And it is like it definitely is stress on people because they think about productivity and that leads to an expectation. But then when your productivity is less and you're not hitting those expectations, it becomes really stressful. And SMEs generally are 50% behind the capability of larger businesses, which you could kind of say, well, larger businesses have more resource and time and space to do like really good things in terms of productivity and satisfaction and well-being. So hopefully we can give you some information today to actually bridge that gap. We have done a lot of research. We took our time to do this. So thousands of people were involved in the research. We spoke to business leaders. We spoke to employees. We went as broad in terms of experience and role, but also region, age, seniority, gender, like any mix that obviously was relevant for research like this. We just wanted to get like as broad a view as possible and see what the trends were. But the connections that we saw is like satisfaction being like a really powerful driver of well-being and recognition. And it can be actually easy to bolt these two together, but they're not. They're actually very separate things that humans perceive and receive in very different ways. So hopefully we can explain a little bit more about this. So satisfaction is more about like I guess contribution and meaning and feeling, and it comes from an internal place. So you want to actually feel that you've been involved in something really important. and it's less controlled by what somebody else says to you and more about how you actually feel. Okay. So we have seen when we went through the research and we quizzed people on productivity and satisfaction, there's a direct correlation between satisfaction and productivity. Um, when they move together, it's really powerful. And I guess the question is, well, how can a leader like or a business owner actually understand this more? It just starts with a simple conversation, like with your team. Like, tell me about how you feel about your role. Like, are you satisfied here? What could we do like together to make things better for you? And actually, when you have that type of like crucial conversation with somebody, it's on a much more personal level, obviously, rather than having hey, what tasks are you working on? What projects are you working on? When will you have A, B, and C? Um, Imagine just having a satisfaction conversation once a month. I think would actually be really powerful. We saw that employees that feel satisfied are 3 times more likely to be are 3 times more committed to the company, and 2 times more motivated. Where this gets really tangible is we can see in the hiring data from our clients in the UK, they're hiring replacement staff at least 3 quarters in the year. So that means that somebody is leaving the business at least once every 90 days. Now, some of those people, that for different reasons, they might leave and it's fine. But what if you could actually hold on to these people? And if they stay a bit longer, and that could be 6 months or a year or 2 years, they're obviously going to get better at their role. And if you can actually step in there and have a conversation with them around satisfaction, that should accelerate it even more. So to me, that is, getting towards more tangible outcomes. People obviously go above and beyond because work is meaningful, but I actually think from a psychological perspective, they just tend to care more. Um, so they will actually make much more of an effort to engage and communicate in the right way. And really, like important one to me here, 25% are more likely to help a colleague. Um, I feel this in our business, and I moved over from Singapore to the UK just over a year ago. We went from 60 people to 150 people. And one of the things I kept kind of saying to everyone was, hey, remember, we've got more new people than existing people. Like, so help, like ask questions, check in on people, like see how they're doing. Because we run the risk of having like a almost separate group of people who are considered like the OGs and the newbies. And I was like, we've just got to like get everybody together and make sure that they're working together. And it really does add to, I guess, the positive sentiment that people have about their employment. Um, the gap. Okay, so when we surveyed larger businesses and SMEs, it's quite low down in terms of priorities, and it would probably be easy to list out like say, 6 priorities that are more important for larger organizations. We get it. But what this shows us is that, especially on the SME side, it's barely scraping into the top 10. And maybe it's you just don't have the capacity, mental capacity, cognitive load, time to actually sit back and make a plan for this. But I'm pretty certain that if you did, you would see the benefits. We know it's the number one driver of productivity. We're hearing from leaders that they actually believe it and understand it. But I think they probably need a bit of help, right? Like on how to actually action this, and that it needs really dedicated, intentful actions, almost like with your direct reports, do I have a standing one-to-one every week? Okay, cool. That can be like all about like the work and the jobs and the BAU. Can I find 15 minutes once a month to have a satisfaction conversation with someone, like a crucial conversation? I think that would be time well spent. So you can obviously surveys these things. We can support that obviously in the system. But I'd recommend that you just start asking people, right? Like, so don't feel like you have to come up with a strategy and a detailed plan of what you need to do next, which is attached to a big business case, because that will probably get parked somewhere. Just go and start speaking to people and survey them. And if you're a smaller business, it's a bit easier, obviously, to go and speak to people. Sometimes anonymous surveys help, right? Like people actually will open up a bit more and they feel like they can actually say a few, a little bit more detail or more things. So there's many ways to actually get started on this. We just have some water, sorry. So
Give yourself a
recognition.
quick break.
Yeah, sorry, I know it's a skill and an art being able to speak fast. Recognition clearly different than satisfaction. Satisfaction quite internal. Recognition comes from other places. And there's definitely a feel good factor to it, right? Like we understand and we see from the data and the research that when people receive the the right level of genuine recognition, there is a big impact on retention. Um, a lot of employees that we speak to in our research, um, they actually don't know how they're doing. Like they can kind of get a feeling, and if they have a target, so if you say if you're a salesperson, you have a target, it's quite black and white. But if you're in different parts of the business that aren't that specific, I think it's really important that the leaders there are constantly um, giving people feedback. And it can be constructive, like in terms of constructive feedback. But what I'd like to talk about here is recognition. So like the positive component of that feedback is really important. It's easy to let it slide. So many things happen in a day, a week, a month. Um, I won't say I'm brilliant at it, but I'm trying to get better all the time. One thing that helps me is I go old school and got the notepad here, right? Like, and kind of look at it at the end of the week and go back through and I star stuff and say, yeah, like that was really good. I need to go to that person and tell them that they've done really well. But it is a habit that leaders have to build. Make sure you take the time to do it. Um, Workers who feel recognized like triple the likeliness in terms of productivity. It's almost like basic coaching, right? Like you get in there, you help someone understand what they're good at. That gives you the license to maybe do a bit more on the pieces that they're not great at. But I'm more in the camp of um, rather than focusing on someone's weaknesses, I focus on their strengths and try and like elevate them as much as possible. Everybody wants to know actually that's not fair. A lot of people would like to know their shortcuts and where they need to improve. But if you spend time trying to fix stuff that you're just not great at, versus spend time focusing on things that you're really good at that you could do even more, I actually think this is like the better place spent. Now, many people would disagree with me, I'm sure, but I've tried these things over the years and I find focusing on strengths is actually a much better outcome for all parties. Um, employees don't feel recognized, they just don't know, as I said, like they're unsure, and maybe that can result in them leaving the business, which is obviously very expensive for the businesses that you work in and you run. And it's kind of a little bit silly, like you kind of we see stuff in exit interviews that are surprises, like for people, and it just shows that like there hasn't been great leadership in that place. So definitely one to watch out for. Uh, Recognition ranks barely scrapes into the top 20 in terms of importance of business leaders, which I kind of scratch my head with this one, right? Like if you go onto social media, you go onto LinkedIn, you'll see people talking about like the importance of leadership and recognition. So I tried to figure this one out. I actually think that it's just making sure that you get into the habit of doing it. I don't think, and I would like to think that the large majority of leaders don't take a stance where they're saying, I don't want to give recognition. Like I kind of think the world is a better place than that. Um, but I look at myself and I say, well, why don't I do it more? And it's really like I need to make it a habit. So hopefully that rings true for some of you. I'm sure you want to do it more. Um, and the most powerful piece in this is it can just be the small things as well, right? Like the mini wins. It doesn't have to be this big project delivery. Um, it can be a moment in time in a day where you hear something and you see something that's been done really well, and you just say it. Um, so your employee recognition program, that sounds quite heavy, doesn't it? But it's building the habit to do it, and actually diarize it, like put it in your diary, like, end of a day, start of a day, end of a week, like, and just make sure that you're collecting it, or like me, go old school and write it down. Because I think I have a pretty decent memory, but I forget more than I learn, I reckon, at this stage. Um, we want to share obviously the productivity report so you can get in there and utilize it, and it should actually help you if you need to formulate a business plan. So we put in there a productivity toolkit, and it's really about building the mechanics of this, and actually putting a case together. And what I find with items like this is, if I get a hold of a kit like this and I start to work through it, then I start thinking of more. Then I start questioning, okay, what do we really need? Like, and I'll share it to a couple of people in the team, be like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, is it like not great right now, or like is it really good? Like, and what else do we need to do? So we want to give you a starting point. We want to give you the information, and obviously arm you with as much as possible so that you can go and have all these conversations that I truly believe you need to have with your business, people in your business. So I hope you enjoyed that. Apologies if I did speak quite fast. I tried to tone it down. It's the Irish in me. We tend to rattle on pretty quickly, but happy to answer any questions. And I can see on the chat there's a few comments and questions coming through. So I know we did get some questions before this, so we'll open it up. Claire, have you seen
Yeah.
anything coming through that you think I could do an okay job of answering?
Yeah. 100%,
Yeah.
100%. And the chat's been really great. Actually, I've been following through the chat, and there's just before we kick into the Q&A, like I would say there's definitely some, I guess, common themes coming through there as well, which is it seems to be as well those challenges of, I guess, putting things like this and initiatives in place when you do have financial constraints as well. So I think that like focus on that recognition and those simple conversations around job satisfaction, like they're free. You don't have to put monetary, incentives on any of those things. So they're really good starting points. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the chat that's been going on the side. But yeah, we'll kick into the Q&A portion of the session. So yeah, there are a load of questions that have come through. So Kevin, you happy for me just to fire away?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll obviously pick the most curly ones to throw at you, yeah, on the spot.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. So what do we got here? So here's a good one to kick off with. What are the best first steps in introducing a new wellbeing program to staff? And how is it best to introduce it on a need-to-know basis or talk about it in an all-staff meeting?
Okay, I think I captured all of that.
So, I could have
No,
broken that into two parts for you if you like to make that
yeah,
easier,
no, it's
but
okay. It's okay. There's good components in there. Okay, so
Mhm.
how do you introduce it? One, I think you've got to try it yourself, right? Like, when I was going through the slides, I was saying, um, hopefully it came across like some of this stuff is actually quite easy to start, before you formulate a true plan. And having a question with someone around their job satisfaction is pretty easy to do. Now, the flip side of that is if there's an employee or a team leader, in the business, or even a leader, and you start all of a sudden asking about job satisfaction, you might get like a bit of a strange reaction. Um, so I think it's important that at the same time to give people a heads up and say, hey, look, we're really thinking about like what we can do here and how we can improve well-being in the business. These are the reasons why, and this is how we'd like to take our first step. And if it's a baby step, that's fine, because if you get momentum, then you can go faster. Um, and then in terms of like communicating it out on, say, an all hands or all staff, what I've seen before is a lot of effort goes into that moment, right? Like sharing like what we're going to do, and jumping on like a all company wide communication, or sending out a company wide communication, and then nobody hears anything for like a month or 6 weeks. And so you've lost the rhythm, right? Like you've lost also potentially a little bit of the genuineness, in what you're trying to do. So I would make sure that it's not just announced and then left. Like I'd make sure it's announced and then there's immediate action taken.
Yeah, it's so important, right? Like it's more I guess putting actions behind your words as well,
Yep.
and keeping people having that confidence that you are being genuine in what you are presenting and offering. And you are right, like so much work goes in from business leaders, HR professionals into getting these things set up as well. Like it's good to give it that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was great. What have we got next? How do you get, this is a good one, how do you get buy-in from I guess depending on the business size, but leadership for well-being and investment?
Yeah, like any project, right? Like you probably have to start like communicating early on that, like and share your intentions. But I did say at the start, I think it was like it can be challenging with this one because the easy pushback is like, what's the business outcome in tangible terms? Like, independent who you're speaking to, that could be financial or productivity. And this is where we're trying to help, right? Like, so maybe that productivity toolkit, like, or the report itself can actually like really show people. And like we have researched over like a couple of thousand people. So hopefully that's enough of a sample size, like to say, hey, this can work. Um, I think like with any big business case, like where it's something that feels really new, like say a well-being strategy, I'd say start small. Like, and it could be if you're a 50-person business or a 25-person business, like start with a smaller group, like and quickly expand it, but like maybe get 5 people and say, hey, we're gonna look at this, like, and you got to find out ways then to measure productivity. That's business dependent. Like, how do you actually measure it? But I think most businesses would have a grasp on that. Like, it could be speed of service, or bringing a new product to market, or increase sales, or reduce costs, whatever lever you're trying to pull.
Yeah, and it's so much easier these days to be able to do that as well, right? And like I no doubt everybody's clicked that QR code and is downloading this report as we speak. But yeah, I agree. Like this should hopefully help people be able to do that, and get those. There we go, back to it, and get those data points to be able to help those conversations and get that buy-in. It's definitely a different time now with that sort of stuff. Okay, sorry, I've got a load here. Bear with me. Okay. How do you capture metrics and impact of employee CPD? So obviously career progression,
Yep.
development
Continue.
in,
Yeah.
let me start this again because I've just got completely tongue tied. How do you capture metrics and impact of employee CPD, employment related training on outcomes such as well-being, reduced burnout, confidence, and competence at work? These are really long questions to read out, guys. So there's been a lot of thought put into these questions, which is amazing.
Um, okay, so how do you capture metrics and impact? I think was the start of it. So one, you have to measure what matters, right? So if you don't have the ability to measure metrics clearly and set goals and OKRs really clearly, I think you set yourself up for a failure, especially in terms of well-being, where I think you will have more skeptics, like saying, "Hey, this we can't see the tangible impact." Um, so like there's got to be underlying good systems and processes in place, right? Like to measure these things. So that's one thing. And look, I think you got to use some kind of technology to measure that. That could be dependent on your business, but I know in our system we can measure goals and OKRs and progress and percentage progress, etc. So that could be helpful. CPD. I'm an accountant by trade, so I got to do my CPD every year. It's my view on CPD is interesting, or maybe not. It feels mandatory, but I'm not sure if it adds a lot of like a ton of value to what I do. So for a business owner, I'd be thinking about, well, what do we need our people to know, like, and how can we help them with that? Um, an example of our own internal CPD at the moment, you could call it, is everything around AI. Like, it's such
Yeah.
a big topic. People don't know where to get started. People are lots of like wide, varying viewpoints on what it is and what we should do. So we created courses for it. And the first course is this is the definition, like, and this is how you get started. And then it's like, oh, try this and here's some case studies. So Yeah, you can formulate these courses pretty easily now with the right tools. In fact, I think you could, you can type up the content of a course pretty quickly in, say, ChatGPT, make it personal to yourself, and then turn it into a video pretty quickly, like on tools. But then measuring the impact and the metrics, like I think you just need to have that set up properly with goals and OKRs.
Yeah,
So if that
make it
answers it,
easy for
yeah.
people, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
mean, I can remember,
and
way
transparent.
way back
Yeah.
when. Yeah, I can
Mm,
remember way back when, first doing CPD points and that mad rush at the end of the year to get your points up for your membership. And,
yeah.
you're just kind of doing whatever you can to get that up. And that is something I feel like we're doing a good job of at the moment, is really guiding people into where to find those, especially, within our business where there's, key focuses. So yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah.
I think we are nearly at time, Kevin. So do you want me to
Okay.
try? Shall I squeeze in one more?
Yes, let's go for it. Yeah.
Right, I'll squeeze in one more. Bear with me, guys. How do you measure ROI in a way that makes companies sit up and take notice?
Well, if you go to the source of who usually pays the bills, in most companies, it's either the financial controller, CFO, or the CEO, or a combination of both. Um, you have to be able to show a positive um, productivity slash financial outcome, and that's a way to take notice. Now, if I could give someone a tip, I'd really hone in on attrition and hiring, because it is one of the most regular business transactions that happens at an SME level. We do know that SMEs are recruiting at least once every quarter, but in three of those quarters, they're actually replacing people who have left. Um, there are ways, obviously, to computate the cost, like of someone leaving before you'd kind of hope they would leave. Um, Recruitment fees, the gap in not having somebody in role, like does that directly impact, like, say, production or sales, or like a specific part of the business? That can be done on a spreadsheet in a pretty simple way, and I don't think you need to be an accountant to do it, but I think a CFO or a CEO seeing that in real life could, like, really make them sit up and go, oh, actually, like, that is costing the business a lot. So you're kind of going to the problem that you're trying to solve from it, like, tangible, and then working backwards to say, hey, I've got a solution though. And I think that can open up a really positive conversation.
Yeah, come with a solution rather than a problem. Is that where we're going?
Basics. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we are definitely at time. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who joined us today and asked questions and got involved in the chat. Like I said, the chat's been great. I'm still watching it going off now, so I'll make sure I catch up on anything that I missed in there as well. Like we said, there is, if there's any questions, and there were a ton that came through, so any that we didn't get a chance to get to, we'll make sure that we get a response back to you after this. And obviously, we'll also be sharing the resources, the recording of the webinar with you after the session as well. So yeah, keep your eye out for any future webinars. We're doing them all the time. So yeah, please keep your eye out. And again, thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time out of your morning to join us.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Thank you. Thanks, Claire.